Hey, a few people asked me to go over what I did to my ZX4, and I have a little time before my next track day, so I figured I'd do a video breakdown of what I did to my bike and why. Before I get started, I want to let you know that I'm not the fastest rider out there, and everything I'm saying is from my point of view. I've been in a few races, and I'm usually the middle of the pack. As far as track days go, I run A group pace on a small bike. I hope that gives you an idea of where I'm coming from. Okay, let's get into it. So, why did I get the ZX4? Well, I like small bikes. That's where I'm fastest. I have ridden bigger bikes, but I'm generally slower on them. I think it's the combination of speed and weight. Last year, when the ZX4 came out, I went back and forth about getting one. I knew I wanted a small 4-cylinder, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to move on from my Ninja 400 yet. As soon as my friend got one, though, I knew I had to get one. I went on a few rides, like going down Highway 35 to Alice's restaurant. On the way there, I had a hard time maintaining speed in 6th gear. This was over Altamont Pass. This surprised me because I've never experienced that before. I think the gearing is so short on small bikes, this usually isn't a problem, but the ZX4 has very tall gearing. After that, I knew I didn't want to use the ZX4 as a street bike. So what's next? Well, track days, but I needed a few things before I did that. Step 1, track fairings. If I wanted to be on the track, I needed fairings I wasn't afraid of crashing in. Unfortunately, there weren't any race fairings for sale yet, so I decided to go with an aftermarket fairing from LKK Motor. A complete set of custom painted fairings were under $700 shipped to my door. Now, I paid for my fairings. I'm not sponsored by anyone, but LLK did amazing work. I asked for a set of fairings for a 2023 ZX25 in the 2018 MotoGP Desmosedici color scheme and provided a link to some pictures. They took it from there. I didn't need to tell them how to design it or provide any instruction at all. They just applied what they saw in the pictures onto the fairings. It was amazing. While they were at it, I also asked them to change Ducati to Fucati because it would be funny. Now I think it's the most recognizable thing about my bike and I love it. The only other change besides the fairing were the tires. I swapped over to Pirelli Supercorsa SC2 fronts and SC3 rears. I don't really trust any Dunlops. I've had really bad luck with them. Now on to my first track day. I went straight to my favorite track, Thunderhill West counterclockwise. Thunderhill West is a very small technical track. If you haven't been there, you should really go. It's especially fun with small bikes since it's a smaller track and really lets you dice it up with the bigger bikes. Getting on the track with ZX4, I felt like my pace was okay, but it wasn't. I was running slower lap times than on my Ninja 300 or 400. The horsepower is pretty similar between the Ninja 400 and the ZX4. What I didn't realize was the short gearing and the torque of the twin picks up way earlier than the ZX4. I've been relying on the torque to pull me out of corners. Now I have to learn to ride a bike with no torque, be more smooth, and get on the gas earlier. It was a big change. The noise was another thing that threw me off. I wasn't used to the bike being so loud and for so long. On the twin, the bike gets loud and then you shift. But on the ZX4, it gets loud and it stays loud. While on the track, it should almost always be mad and screaming at you. As a result, I was braking too much into the corners and dropping out of the power band. Something else I had to change about my riding. Before my next track day, I really needed new rear sets. Stock just don't give you enough clearance, and I was scraping my toes and pegs all over the place. I wanted to buy some name brand rear sets, but I just couldn't justify 3x the price. These were surprisingly well made. I'm not sure if they make their own parts or just resell other people's parts, but they're really hit or miss. I've gotten rear sets that don't fit, parts that don't fit, missing bolts, etc. You get what you pay for, I guess, but I think it was worth the gamble. With these upgrades, I went back to the track. This time at Thunderhill East, counterclockwise. This is my other local track, and if you haven't been, Thunderhill East is a very flowy track with huge straights. It's made for fast motorcycles. I know the ZX4 isn't big or fast, but I wanted to let it stretch its legs. My Ninja 400 topped out at about 104 miles an hour on the main straight. The ZX4 got a few more at 108. Luckily, my friend was there. He had a tune that unlocked the horsepower in his bike. I could see that I was missing out. Coming onto the straights, my friend was able to easily pass me every time. He even mentioned that it looked like it was hard for me to maintain our pace. Track days are fun, but improving is more fun. It was the end of the track season for 2023, and I knew I had a lot to do during the break. This is usually how I approached upgrades. I like to feel the deficiencies for myself and find ways to fix them. Now to the fun part, the upgrades. After these initial shakedowns, I had an idea of what I needed to change to get me back up to speed. There were a few things I needed to fix, but first was the front suspension. I'm a big guy and I was already bottoming out my front forks with the preload maxed out. I decided to get the Andreani Misano 4 cartridges. I usually reuse Racetech springs and emulators, but they didn't have any options for the ZX4, so I gave the Andreanis a try. Pricing is surprisingly close. I went to a local performance shop, Daredevil Motorsports. Upgrading forks is something that I usually do by myself, but it's really hard for me to find the time now. With the suspension taken care of, it's time for me to get some power. Exhaust systems for the ZX4 were really expensive, so I went with the eBay specials again. I ended up buying from a company called Ultra Nice. The full exhaust fit okay, but I really had to play with it for final fitment. For under $360 shipped to my door, it was well worth it. Next up was the tune. I went with TST Industries since they were having a Black Friday sale. I also picked up an MWR race filter. With these upgrades done, I was eagerly awaiting the 2024 season.